the channel. I'm back to break down this 7-game slate on DraftKings and FanDuel. Before we get into it, I have released multiple Patreon packages over on Patreon, including my KJK DFS MLB package as well as my MLB betting package, where you'll get access to my hot hitter StatCast data sheet, my team hitting data sheet, my bullpen data sheet, and my starting pitcher dating sheet, as you see behind me, as well as things like my cheat sheet and my power rankings, where I break down some top plays on the slate based on spots they're in and their price tier. So if you're interested, go ahead and check that out. Link will be in the description. And then you can follow me over on Twitter at KJK_DFS. And with that being said, let's go ahead and start breaking down this slate. So as always, I like to go ahead and sort my sheet by K rate. It's fantasy sports. We get points for strikeouts. So we can figure out the pitchers we're going to want to get in our lineups today. And the first guy that stands out on the slate when it comes to K rate is that in Garrett Cole. Garrett Cole's topping the slate by about 5% in K rate over Tyler Glasnow. You know, absolute stud. Everyone knows Cole in the league. He's an established name, and he's got a 32.6% K rate against right-handed hitters, and then a 41.2% against lefties. So he's got a good K rate all around, but he actually excels even more against lefties, which is always good to see. And he gets to take on the Tampa Bay Rays today, who do have a fair share of strikeouts in their lineup. And when looking at what Vegas is telling us, Cole comes in as a 152 favorite. So, you know, definitely in a good spot to get the win, and it's Garrett Cole. He comes in at 10K, so you're going to pay for him. But he's actually priced a little bit below Shane Bieber today. And when having to pick between one of them, I would side with Cole. We'll get into Bieber later, but when factoring in price tag and everything, I think I would side with Cole. But don't get me wrong, we're going to want to get both of these guys in our lineups. So moving further along, second on the sheet is that in Tyler Glasnow in the same exact game. He's got a 31.7% K rate, a 32.7% K rate against righties, and then against lefties he has a 30.7% rate. And he gets to take on the New York Yankees, who isn't exactly a team you always want to target, but they do have a fair share of injuries, so they're kind of rolling out their B squad out there. And then you have to factor in that while they do have some guys that can slug, they do have a lot of strikeouts in their lineup. So Glasnow comes in at 8.4 on DraftKings, and I think he's the next guy you want to go to and a price tier down against the New York Yankees. Even though it's not the most ideal matchup, there are strikeouts there, and Glasnow comes in second on the slate in strikeout rate, which moves us along to Mr. Bieber. Bieber's been really good this year, you know, Cy Young candidate for sure, 29.8% K rate. He's got a 29.5% K rate against righties, and then against lefties it ticks up to a 30%. So, I mean, we know what we're getting with Bieber. He's just really hot this year. He looks great out there. And he comes in as a 240 favorite, so Vegas really likes him. And he's 11K on DraftKings, so he is priced up 1,000 pricier than Garrett Cole. So that's something you're gonna have to factor into your lineups, whether you want to pay up that extra 1,000 or whether you'd rather just go down to Cole. However, it is worth mentioning that Bieber is more of a favorite. You know, he comes in as a 240 favorite, while Cole is only a 152 favorite. So Vegas telling us they like him more, and when it comes to factoring in pitchers we want to target in our fantasy lineups, we do obviously prefer the pitcher that's strongly favored because we get points for that win. Next on the list is Lucas Giolito, who comes in as a 140 favorite, and Giolito obviously went out there and threw a no-hitter last time, so I do think there's going to be some buzz around the industry as far as playing him. And we could see his ownership inflated, but we do have to target him because he's been very good. He's got a 24.9% K rate, 26% K rate against righties, and a 23.9% K rate against lefties. And while the Minnesota Twins aren't exactly the ideal target of a team we want to take on, you know, he is a 140 favorite, which tells us something. You know, they're factoring him as a favorite against this Twins lineup, even though they're a really good lineup. And then when looking at the Twins K rate, I'll give you guys a little sneak peek of my hitting data sheet that I offer over there on Patreon. And when you're looking at the Twins, they actually do have a pretty decent K rate. You know, they come in with a 23.7% K rate, so kind of showing up in the yellow range, which means they're kind of mediocre. And then against right-handed pitching, they have a 25.5% K rate. So, I mean, Twins aren't exactly the lineup you think, well, let's go ahead and target them. But Giolito's been hot. He's looking really good, and he does come in as a Vegas favorite. So he's somebody we're going to want to consider for our lineups. And then other guys that we can target, maybe not priced up as much when looking at the slate. You know, I would say we really do want to prioritize paying up for pitching today because there is a lot of good options. But if I had to take a chance on one guy, it would probably be Trevor Williams. And, he's a really risky play, but he comes in at 6K. And it's not really Trevor Williams stuff that is making me say you might want to take a chance on him. It's more so the matchup. He's got an 18% K rate. Really nothing special across the board, honestly. Looking at his numbers against righties, he's got a 22.2% K rate, and then against lefties is a 13.4. But he does better in the hard contact rate and all that stuff against lefties. So, yeah, not a spectacular pitcher. Not a reason why I'm promoting him. But if you look at the Brewers' numbers this year, you can see that they have a 26.5% K rate and a 27.6% K rate against right-handed pitching. So, yeah, it's really just it's a really risky play, but it's someone that if you're looking to go down to a cheaper pitcher to pay up for some bats, he's probably the one that I would take a chance on today. So I just have to mention that to you guys. But moving further along, let's start breaking down these bats that we're going to want to target today. And when looking at the teams we're going to want to target, the first spot that stands out is in this very first game in the Washington Nationals and the Philadelphia Phillies. The game has a 10 implied run total. So that stands out right away. And it's in Philly, which is a great hitter's park. But then more specifically, when looking at these pitchers that are facing off against each other, they're two young pitchers who haven't exactly excelled. They're actually both the bottom two pitchers on the slate in Sierra, which if you tune into my past videos, you'll know I do like to look at Sierra when I'm targeting pitchers to play bats against. So Eric Fetty comes in, with below average numbers across the board. You look at his numbers against righties, he's pretty good in the ground ball and the fly ball rate, but everything else he struggles in. And then against lefties, he's a little bit better, but still struggles in with a hard hitter and the slugging. So I feel very comfortable targeting Eric Fetty today. And when looking at guys we're going to want to target in this Philadelphia Phillies lineup, they're pretty solid up and down. So I really think I could have interest in all these guys. My favorite option, without a doubt, is Bryce Harper. But then you can throw in Rhys Hoskins, JT Realmuto, and Didi Gregorius. That center of the order stack I really like. And then you got Gene Segura and Andrew McCutchen at the top. But then I do think there's some good salary relief options at the bottom of the order in Alec Bohm, Ron McQuinn, and Scott Kingery. If you're paying up for some expensive pitching, you could throw in some cheaper guys in order to be able to afford those more expensive pitching options and get exposure to a 5.2 implied run total, and I think that's a good way to go about it too. But if I'm picking my favorite spot of the order, it's definitely that 2 through 5 range. So you got Rhys Hoskins, Bryce Harper, JT Realmuto, and Didi Gregorius. That would be my preferred stack, and then you could throw in a Gene Segura or an Andrew McCutchen if you want to add one more on to that. And then moving over to this national side, when looking at Spencer Howard's numbers, Spencer Howard is a top prospect for the Phillies, but he's been struggling early on. His numbers have not been good. And specifically when looking at his numbers, he's really bad against lefties. So righties, you look at his numbers, they're not that bad. Lefties, he has been very, very, very bad. Like, I want to put some emphasis on this because this is ridiculously bad. So I have a lot of interest in the Nationals lefties, which automatically makes me love Juan Soto. I think Juan Soto is the premier pay-up option on the slate. I think he's the top guy. If you're paying up for an expensive guy, really at any position, but especially the outfield, I think Juan Soto is your guy today. Comes in at a 5.7K price tag. And then you got Asdrubal Cabrera, Adam Eaton, Luis Garcia, Eric Thames with a ton of power down at the bottom of the order. I think you're definitely going to want to get these lefties in your lineups today. When we're looking at those splits, I think I did a pretty good job of giving you guys some reasoning, but it's just really bad. These lefties have just haunted him so far. So, we're only dealing with an 11 innings pitch sample size, so I want to at least bring that up because it's not like he's been pitching a ton, and it is a limited sample size, but the numbers are just looking blatantly obvious that he's just really struggling against left-handed hitters. So I'm going to go ahead and jump on that while I can, hopefully before other people are aware of it. So definitely have a lot of interest in those lefties today. Moving further along on guys we're going to want to target today, the next guy is that in Colton Brewer. Colton Brewer's been not terrible. His ground ball and his fly ball stuff's pretty good. And then against righties is where it stands out. He really struggles. He has a 482 slugging and just has not been good. The K rate's not good. Nothing's really standing out. And then when you move over to against lefties, he's been better. So right-handed hitters have really given him an issue. And when looking at this lineup today he's taking on, we definitely have some righties that we can target because the Atlanta Braves have some sluggers. So you got Ronald Acuna, Dansby Swanson, Marcell Ozuna, Travis d'Arnaud, Adam Duvall, Austin Riley. I like all these righties. And he's better against lefties, but if the Braves can get him out of this game early, they're going to have an opportunity to face the bullpen. So obviously the elite hitters in Freddie Freeman, you got to have interest in Freddie. And then Nick Markakis at the bottom of the lineup, you could throw in 2 to complete your stacks. But I really like these righties, so if I'm stacking up my premier stack from this lineup, it's going to be an expensive one, but I would want to have Acuna, Swanson, Ozuna, and d'Arnaud in there. We do have some expensive pitching to pay up for, so maybe not the best stack to go to for salary purposes, but it's definitely a good spot and one that you could target if you can fit those bats in. Moving further along, the next guy, I mentioned playing Trevor Williams, but you can also target him. And when looking at his splits, he's really bad against righties, and then against lefties, he's better. So he's a guy that we like to target, right-handed. We like to target him with right-handed hitters. And when looking at this lineup that the Brewers are rolling out, they don't really necessarily have a right-handed heavy lineup. So that almost increases the appeal of playing Trevor Williams a little as well. But with that being said, Keston Hiura is a guy that really stands out as a play today. The second base spot, you're going to pay up for him, but he's got a ton of power. And with the splits that I mentioned with Williams, he's someone that I want to point out to probably get in your lineups and have a lot of interest in. At the second base position, that's not always the strongest. So if you can find some salary in other positions to save on and pay up for Hiura, that would make sense. And I like him today. But more specifically, these Pittsburgh hitters, I think you could have a lot of interest in because when looking at Lauer's numbers, he's just below average across the board. Really nothing impressive going on there. And when looking at his splits, he really struggles against right-handed hitting, and then against lefties, he's a little bit better. He's a lefty, so that's typical. But when looking at his numbers against righties, we can definitely target some of these righties on this Pittsburgh Pirates team. And I think they come in at some pretty good price tags today, so that's what really increases the appeal as well. So you got guys like Eric Gonzalez, Cole Tucker, Kevin Newman, Jacob Stallings, and Jose Ozuna is only 2K. He can slug lefties, and then Will Craig at the bottom of the order. So I think that these Pittsburgh Pirates are in a pretty good spot, and I also think that they're very affordable. So we're really looking to target the righties. And you could pay up for Kevin Newman. Obviously, he's a pretty good hitter in the lineup. He's in the 3-hole for a reason. But then you also have these cheaper guys. So pretty much any and every righty in the lineup I like for salary relief, and I think is a good cheap stack today. So I want to mention those Pittsburgh Pirates as a salary relief stack. And then down here at the bottom, we do have Coors Field today, so we have to analyze that. Coors Field, the pitchers matching up this game aren't terrible. You got Garrett Richards, who I actually really do like targeting, though, because when we look at Richards' numbers, he has been really struggling against right-handed hitting. He's just a little bit of a splitsy guy, reverse splits. He struggles against right-handed hitting, and he's got a 45.5% hard hit rate and a 452 slugging against him. And then moving over against lefties, he has been a little bit better. So it's mainly the righties, but these Rockies have 2 elite bats that I have a lot of interest today in Trevor Story and Nolan Arenado. They're always guys you have to have interest in Coors Field. And when looking at the splits of Garrett Richards, I think they really stand out as really good plays today. So I want to go ahead and mention Nolan Arenado and Trevor Story. Like them a lot. And then the Padres, one of the hottest teams in the league, and they take on German Marquez, who is a pretty good pitcher overall, but he is in Coors Field. But when looking at his numbers, a lot of green across the board. Against righties, he's very good. And then against lefties is where he starts to struggle a little bit. So if I'm targeting anyone from the San Diego game, which I think you can because they're in Coors Field, but I do greatly prefer the lefties. So maybe a good day to go ahead and fade Tatis and Machado at those high price tags. Obviously, they're in Coors Field, so they are automatically in a good spot. I don't want to say they're not in a good spot, but whenever we're dealing with a Coors Field game, we're looking for reasons to be different. We're looking for reasons to fade these guys, and I think that's a reason I can point out today. Herman Marquez is a lot better against right-handed hitting. So if you have a bunch of people paying 6.1K and 5.7K for Tatis and Machado, and you go ahead and say, I'm not going to play those guys, and they put up a low score, you're going to be feeling pretty good about yourself because a lot of the field's going to be behind you in those tournaments, and that's the stuff we need to think about, and that's the stuff we're looking to break down in these videos. So maybe a good day to go ahead and fade them, but don't want to say they're in a bad spot. They're in Coors Field. That's a thing. However, I do prefer the lefties. So Trent Grisham, Eric Hosmer, Jake Cronenworth, Profar, Naylor, all those guys you got to like. And specifically, Grisham, Hosmer, and Cronenworth. They're the guys at the top. They're the guys with power, and I like them today. And then lastly, the last deck that we have to mention is going to be, for me, the Chicago White Sox, because they get to take on the lefty and Rich Hill, and the Chicago White Sox have some guys that can slug left-handed pitching. And then when we look at Rich Hill's numbers, against right-handed hitting, he gives up a 45.2% hard hit rate and a 404 slugging. And then against lefties, he's very good. So Rich Hill's a guy you can target specifically with right-handed hitters, but he does have a 29.2% K rate against them. So a little bit of a disclaimer there. But at the end of the day, these guys with power can definitely get the job done. And the guys that slug lefties. So you got Tim Anderson, Eloy Jimenez, Yasmani Grandal, Jose Abreu, Edwin Encarnacion. That 1 through 5 range, they all absolutely kill left-handed pitching. So they're going to be your premier options and the guys you're going to want to target the most. But then we also have Adam Engel at the bottom of the order who excels against lefties, and he's only 2K, so he can fit in some salary relief. And Madrigal as well. So maybe them for more for salary relief, but the 1 through 5 range is the guys that really crush lefties and the guys you're going to want to have interest in the most, absolutely. So yeah, throw in some cheaper guys at the bottom, maybe two into maybe like a wraparound stack. So throw an angle 9, 1, 2, 3 type of deal. You get one guy with salary relief, and then you can fit in the rest. But once again, a good stack, but they're a little bit on the pricey side. So we're going to need to find some cheap stacks to fit in with those guys to get these pitchers in. So I think that is going to be probably the hardest part of the slate is finding those cheap guys, but I had already gone over, a few of these teams that have some cheaper guys at the bottom of the order, like the Nationals, the Phillies, the Pirates, those teams looking for salary relief, and then we're going to have to try to fit in some pitching, and I think that's pretty much a good summary of today's slate. So quick little rundown of what we've gone over today. Garrett Cole, top option on the slate for pitching. I like him a lot today. Tyler Glasnow, I think, is a good guy in the mid-range you can drop down to if you're looking for a cheaper option. I like targeting these bats a lot in this Washington and Phillies game. I talked about the splits with Spencer Howard, so Juan Soto is an absolute stud, and he's in a great spot today. And then you got Asdrubal Cabrera, Adam Eaton, all those lefties I like. The Phillies I like a lot as well. Fetty's just not good overall. So the middle of the order, these guys with power, and then you got some salary relief in the bottom of the order. I like the Atlanta Braves, specifically the righties, but you also have to throw in the premier bats and the lefties like a Freddie Freeman. But I really do like the righties today. The Pittsburgh Pirates, I think, are a good sneaky stack that's cheap, and you can throw them in for some salary relief. And then I had mentioned Keston Hiura on the Milwaukee Brewers. I like him a lot as a one-off. And then lastly, Trevor Williams at 6K. You could throw him as a dart pitcher, and it might pay off for you against the Milwaukee Brewers' high K rate. Then you have the Chicago White Sox taking on Rich Hill. I had mentioned he struggles against right-handed hitting, so I like some White Sox bats at power. So Tim Anderson, Eloy Jimenez, Yasmani Grandal, Jose Abreu, and Edwin Encarnacion. That 1 through 5 range is really dangerous. Shane Bieber as a pitcher, you got to love taking on the Royals. He's in a good matchup when he's a 240 favorite, so obvious play, but he's priced up. And then you got Lucas Giolito at 10-4, also a guy to have a lot of interest in. And lastly, this Coors Field game is obvious. It's a Coors Field, so it's always a good spot. But when looking at the guys I have the most interest in, it's definitely Trevor Story and Nolan Arenado with the righty splits I had mentioned. And then you could throw in Matt Kemp. He's the other righty, so just based on splits alone, we could throw him in there and like that. And for the Padres, I like the other side. I like the lefties. So I like Grisham, Eric Hosmer, and Jake Cronenworth. And with that being said, I do have to give you guys my home run call of the day. If you've been tuning into my videos, this is a segment I always try to give you guys one bat that I think is going to go deep. And I am 6 for 12. Last one I got wrong, so we're back to the 500 mark. And today, Um, I really don't have one off the top of my head, so we're gonna just analyze what the thing that really stands out the most on this slate, and I had broken it down earlier, and I try to give you guys sneaky plays, but I also just really want to back up my reasoning with numbers, and with the Spencer Howard numbers that we went over with the slugging against left-handed pitching, his numbers are just really bad, so I can't help myself but to go ahead and pick Juan Soto today to be my home run call of the day. I had gone with some sneakier picks the last few videos, but today I'm going to go with an elite bat and Juan Soto because those numbers are just really bad against lefties, and it really stands out today. And I think you need to get Juan Soto in your lineups at all costs. I think he is going to go off. I think he's going to have a big day, and I really like me some Juan Soto today. So go ahead and get Juan Soto in your lineups. That's what I will sign off with. Love Juan Soto today. Please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you'll be notified for future videos. I appreciate you guys tuning in today, and I wish you all the best of luck tonight.